views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Shooters Nation or our sponsors. Information provided on this show is not a replacement for legal counsel or professional training. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows.
Welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast, the talk show for you, the armed citizen. Join us as we discuss guns and gear, training, mindset and knowledge, industry news and buzz, and of course, the firearms culture. Be sure to join us after the show at shootersnation.com and become part of the Shooters Nation.
Hello and welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast. I'm your host, David Yancey, and this is episode number 10. Not only is this our 10th episode, but it's also our first ever live episode, live stream for an audience on YouTube. And if that's you, if you're watching on YouTube, you know exactly how much pain I'm in right now. So my apologies for the technical difficulties. I promise that if you're listening to this on the podcast, you're getting a much better experience than the poor folks on YouTube watching us live did. So we'll only get better, I guess, as we go along, or we won't. And no one will ever do this with us again. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, so of course my co-host needs no introduction, but is going to get one anyway. Mark Lancaster of Squared Away Customs in New Hampshire, the live free or die state. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here.
Did I happen to mention that this is our 10th episode and we're live?
Yes, we're here. We're live. Doing it.
Yeah. Oh, well, it adds a new dimension to it. I thought before that when I think back to episode 1 and the stress that I had in my gut as I tried to get everything just perfect, this exponentially worse. And anybody that knows me in real life knows just how much I love stress. So, yeah, if I just fall over dead, cover me up with some dirt and leave me there. So.
Mike Cicino has a really good patch for you.
Oh, yeah.
And he wears it in a lot of his classes on the back of his hat. It says, F it, we'll do it live.
Yes. Yeah, Bill O'Reilly made that quote famous on CNN, and I think they actually had the cameras and the audio open for the audience.
It was a hot mic, yeah.
He didn't realize it. So, yeah, that's definitely, that's me tonight, so we'll just kind of do it live. Also joining us tonight to help MC things is Dennis Ritchie, author, blogger with theartofstanding.com, and music industry veteran here in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks for coming on board to help us out today, Dennis, and to hopefully never let me forget this as long as I live.
I'm glad to be here, and thanks for having me, and I'm really happy not to be engineering today. I don't have to push a button, no console, no nothing. It's all on you. Not to make the pressure any worse, but
right.
It's really fun. Usually I'm the guy scrambling around behind things going, what's not working?
I know I told you guys both this, but last night I came up here to the studio, and I guess it was about 11 o'clock p.m., and I wanted to do a quick sound check before tonight, thinking a little bit of planning ahead probably will pay dividends, and it didn't. I went to bed at 1 a.m. thinking, I don't know how it started working again, but it did, so I'm not going to touch it. And between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. it was sheer chaos, and I think I had the whole thing taken apart and recabled several times. And I think I really just want to become, I don't know, do the Amish sell kites on the beach? Because
Amish spot.
I want to convert and shun technology and then go sell kites on the beach. I think that's kind of really where I'm headed right now. So
Amish kites, I like it.
Yeah, it's a good thing nobody's paying for this episode tonight, because I probably owe them some in return, in exchange. Me. Well, so this
The next one.
I'm sorry.
We'll double the price of the next one.
Yeah, exactly double what you paid for it tonight. That's what the cost of admission will be next time. That's exactly what it's worth. So,
I don't know.
Well, so the agenda tonight, I guess, is Mark and I talked about this, and we thought it would be a good episode to stop and take a look back at where we've been, and also look at the road ahead of us and answer some questions from our audience. And so the bonus is, I guess it's a bonus. For those poor people, it's not maybe a bonus, but the bonus is that tonight our audience is live and able to interact with us and send their questions and their scorn via the YouTube live stream chat. So I guess, one of the questions that I was asking myself was, how could folks get in on this in the future? And I know we've done a fantastic job of selling you on being a repeat audience participant in the future. So if you want to see, will they actually get better at this? Just sign up for our mailing list on shootersnation.com /mail blast, or if you just go to shootersnation.com, go to the website, you'll see a little thing on there where you can sign up for our newsletter and do that. And then that's where we'll send out things about live streaming. Mark, I think one of the other questions that I had was, is YouTube streaming going to be part of the show in the future? And can we maybe decide that after this show?
Wait and see.
Yeah,
we'll wait till tomorrow when the dust has settled for you a little bit, and your the wheels are back on, and you're calm. Well, then we'll have the conversation.
Yeah. I check our Instagram feed generally first thing in the morning, and it's kind of like when I'm getting up and getting ready for things, I'll check Instagram, and normally I'll post something, and I can't wait. Just be gentle. Yeah. All right. So anyway, so Dennis, I think what Mark and I would really like to do tonight, surprise, is we'd like to hand this over to you.
Right.
and then you get to be the MC tonight and ask us all the questions and be the interface, if you will, between the audience and us.
Sure.
And I guess let's just have at it. With this being episode 10, it'd be fun to do some retrospective, but I'm willing to take a shot at some future predictions, as long as it isn't how much better is YouTube going to be for you guys next time?
Well,
the answer that's not. It's going to be terrible.
Well, the great thing about it is that nobody's going to come here tonight for podcasting advice, and it's just like they're not there going, "Hey, I know who to call for video stuff." You guys are gun experts, and that's the thing that we're going to be talking about. Anything around it, we're going to open up the questions and the night to anything anybody wants to talk about. Normally, there's a format, there's a subject that you guys talk about, and a plan beforehand. And this is real seat of the pants. We're going to just see what you guys, what people ask, and what you want to tell us about. And who knows what will happen? My dog may get excited and start barking at the neighbors like she usually does when it gets dark, and we'll just go with it. So how about we start with a basic question or two, and anybody who wants to ask a question, you can pop on YouTube and make a comment, and I'm watching that while they give us their wizened expertise answers. Then you can do that, and we have some things to talk about. I thought that it would be great just to begin with you two guys, and we had the basic introduction of you two, but the question comes to mind: how did you guys? And I don't even know the answer to this question. And that is, by the way, that's my job here, is not knowing anything, and I'm going to be good at it. But how did you two guys meet? I know there's a lot of connections that you have, and what was that like?
I'm immediately discouraged because you took the job that I thought I was going to have tonight for not knowing how to.
No, that's my turn. I do have a list, so I've got ignorance and a list. So we'll.
Okay. Oh, this will be fun. Golly, Mark, how did we meet?
So it's funny this comes up today is because Facebook has the, what happened on this day. Is that what it's called, on this day?
Right.
And I scroll through them. I think it's kind of comical to scroll through them and go back and look at history. And now even on been on Facebook for however many years. There's some
Right.
pretty funny stuff that pops up. But 5 years ago, I think it was yesterday, you were commenting, David, on a post that Tyson did
Yeah.
about one of his first holsters from me, and you
Okay.
had questions about it. And you were
Tell 'em what
questioning
happens.
whether the soft loop was a leather strap or if it was a synthetic strap.
How supple are your straps, Mark?
Right. And I just thought it was really, really kind of comical when I saw that yesterday, because I was like, wow, like, was it that long ago? And that's obviously, I think, where it probably first started.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we definitely ran into each other on Facebook, and
Online dating experiences.
it really was.
Match.
Yeah, match.com. It's like, I like guns. You like guns? He likes guns too. So that was our thing. Yeah, I do. I vaguely remember the question about that, and I think it ended up with me buying one of the Kilo holsters for a Glock 19, and I still have that holster. But it's kind of weird how that whole thing played out, because the guy that we were just talking about, Tyson, mutual friend of ours, and is actually the older brother of one of my friends from Nashville who moved to North Carolina. And, in the whole weird confluence of things in the universe, somehow, they all started getting into firearms discussions, and they knew that I liked guns, and then entered, and so that's kind of how we ended up in the same group. And, I guess it was back in, I don't know, I guess it's January that I started thinking about doing the podcast in earnest, really started thinking about it. And then we started chatting, and there was one night where I was toying with the idea. I was on the cusp of actually doing an episode, the first ever episode. And I was about to back out of it because, again, I didn't have everything perfect. And lack of perfection kind of drives me nuts, especially if people are going to be watching or consuming the product. And I was about to just scrap it. And Mark hopped in on instant message and was like, "No, let's go do it. Let's do it right now. Let's go do it." And
Totally my style. Yep.
yeah, we just totally went and did episode 1 and had a blast with it. So yeah, that's maybe more than you asked for, but that's kind of how we got to where we.
No, this is all interesting to me, and what I'm going to try to back up and let people know a little about you, because I'm assuming that. Well, two things: that someone's listening, and that they don't know about you two guys. So I'm going to start with you, and the next question that comes to mind immediately after that is your relationship with guns. I mean, I know that with me, it's a family thing, and I'm a Southern boy, so that just kind of gets you into a certain level to guns in general. But this is a different level that you guys operate at. This is not just some guy, bought a new shotgun at Walmart. You guys are very into it and have become expert at what you do. So the transition from, gee, there's a gun, I like this, to as much as you've gotten into it. What was that like?
Who you want to start with?
Well, let's start with Mark.
Okay.
So up here in New Hampshire, my dad is about the most avid hunter you can possibly imagine.
Okay.
All hunting season long, all we talk about is hunting. And then the day that hunting season ends, we talk about hunting next year. And so I grew up as a kid, as soon as I was strong enough to carry my 410, walking out in the woods with my dad and my 410.
Very cool.
Shooting his 22 pistols, shooting his 22 rifles, and then obviously going up the chain until I, started getting into the more higher power stuff. But for a long, long time, my affliction for guns was revolving around hunting solely. And that's where my dad, that's still the wheelhouse he's in.
Gotcha.
He gets excited about my stuff, but has no interest in owning an AR-15. It's just not him. He's had a couple and he's just like, I don't know what to do with it. It's just not me. But if you give him a Thompson Center Encore chambered in 35 Whalen with a Leupold VX1 on it, he's just like drooling, like that's his wheelhouse and mine's slightly different. And we deviated quite a bit because this state of that I'm in, the hunting thing is just not me. I really enjoy time in the woods for the disconnect. I really enjoy it because it's something that my father and I do together. But as far as the actual hunt, I don't really care. It's just not really, I just don't have the drive for it. I enjoy being in nature. I enjoy being outside. I enjoy the camaraderie through the guys and even a couple of the girls in my family have when it comes to hunting. We have a cabin off grid way up in northern New Hampshire on the border of Canada and Vermont. And, that was built originally as kind of like a hunting thing. And then that's just evolved into all seasons. We're up there enjoying our time off grid, which is.
Did you grow up in New Hampshire? You've been in that area?
Yes, sir. Been here all my life. Yeah. So that's kind of where the seed was planted, was the hunting thing. And then, I followed a sales career, in my early 20s going up through. And before I knew it, I was 27 years old. I was selling software in the healthcare industry, working my butt off, doing something that I had zero passion for.
Yep.
And knew a guy that, had a need for some business-minded sales professional to help him with his gun shop. And they hired me to come in and try kind of get it off the floor a little bit and help out where it could. And I took some significant steps back as far as pay, very significant.
Yeah, the health industry, I can see that.
And got into doing something that I was just really enjoying. And then when that, kind of relationship dissolved, and as did the position, I was faced with, well, do I go back to doing something that I don't have a passion for, or do I stay in this market that I'm, just totally consumed with? Like, I love it, like everything about it. Like, I love learning. The people are great. You talk guns and gear all day. There's worse things. You know what I mean? Whether it's the buying or the selling or the fixing or the repairing or the cleaning.
Was there a learning curve when you first started at the shop, and just finding out? I mean, there are a lot more things there than you would have access to.
Sure is.
That's part of what hooked you into it.
There's a huge learning curve. So, and that's always good, right? I always feel good when I'm learning something. So especially when you're learning something that you have a passion for. So that's awesome. The learning part of it was significant, and still every single day. And I'm working the industry every day since, and it's been since 2007, I think. And I'm still learning every single day. It's just goes on forever, I think. And new stuff comes out, so it changes. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, and that's.
Well, I want to ask more questions about the business and the holsters and that sort of stuff. But David, your transition from, I know your background, but tell, just kind of do a nutshell version of it for us.
Yeah, sure. So, grew up in Kentucky, lived there until I was in my mid-30s or mid-20s, moved down to Tennessee, and I've been here now for about 20 years. And my grandfather was a career law enforcement officer. He shot competitively. The house was always full of trophies from, his shooting matches and things. He got out of law enforcement and went into essentially private security for the nuclear industry. Was chief of security for a nuclear plant, a nuclear refinement plant in Kentucky, and continued to stay involved in competitive shooting and things like that. The first person to put a gun in my hands was him. I remember going over to his house and, being a kid of the late 70s, early 80s, all the movies that I loved the most were the action movies, right? And so I knew that in my family I had somebody that had guns and knew guns and stuff. So he was willing to talk to me about that stuff, and he really demystified the whole thing about firearms. There wasn't that allure of, well, let's go sneak into a room when the parents or the grandparents aren't around and try to find a gun. It was anytime I wanted to see a gun, he was willing to spend time with me and show me. And so, he had a little Ruger 22 pistol and went out in the woods and set up a target and shot with it. And that kind of started it from there. Really, I got more into firearms the closer it got to the point that I moved into Tennessee. I had an experience, I think we've talked about on the show before, Mark, where I was working in the banking industry doing consulting work and things, and we worked on a lot of the technology equipment, and that had us in anywhere that there was an ATM. That's where we would go to do repairs and things, and a lot of time it was really early in the morning or really late at night, and it's just you and one other guy coming out of a bank, and people saw that. People that were up to no good would notice you and then pay attention to you and then and purposefully encounter you. And I had one too many of those encounters, and I when Kentucky started offering the concealed weapons permit, I got mine, and it was in the mid '90s. And then when I moved to Tennessee, it was something that I wanted to continue doing, and yet there were, I wanted to continue shooting and things like that, but there weren't very many resources available to, Facebook wasn't really a thing yet. And so what I ended up doing was I knew a little bit about putting together social networks like forums, internet forums, and we had done that for automotive enthusiasts. And I took a chance and thought, well, maybe we can do the same thing with gun enthusiasts. And the audience it drew was far larger than we ever drew with cars. And that was kind of surprising to me. So that really kind of started my journey into it, a little bit more seriously. Was that opened doors to go take training with law enforcement officers in the area. It started some really good friendships. It opened doors to get to know people inside the industry as far as manufacturers and retail sales and things like that. And my experience was that by and large, the people that I met in that world, and even to this day, it's still very consistent, are just good people. They have a lot of the fundamental traditional values that are dear to me, and they they appreciate the freedoms of our country. They believe in self-reliance, and that a person should be able to provide for themselves and also take care of themselves in good or bad situations. They support our military. They support our law enforcement by and large. And I think that really somewhere along the way, it occurred to me that I had found my people. And that's just where I've been ever since. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, Jordan is online, and he asked the question, which fits right in here, was how did you each introduce your wives to your love of firearms, and what did they think? How did they react? How did that go?
Mark, I'll go first, I guess.
Sorry, I should be a better host. Yeah, we'll start with you, David.
Well, I saw that he was muted, so I thought I'll go. But it was probably one of our first dates. We went to the shooting range, and I don't know exactly how it came up, other than the fact that I think that at that point, we our story, and I guess I'll come clean and tell everybody, you're my father-in-law, so you know this. And but when my wife and I met, we had both been in previous relationships that weren't the best, and we spent a lot of time trying to dissuade the other, that we just wanted to be alone and not get married again. Yeah, right. And so, we had this story that we tell everybody, that we literally stayed up one night and we thought, okay, we're just going to lay it all out there. We're going to tell each other everything there is to know about each other. And, if you don't like it, then you're going to leave. And, part of my disclosure was I really like guns and I like shooting, and it's just a part of who I am. And that didn't scare her off. And, then, she ended up liking shooting and liked guns. And then my budget cut in half or doubled depending on how you look at it.
All right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, what about you, Mark? How's that worked out?
Well, for me, working in the industry, carrying a gun every single day, it was very prominent, and she knew immediately. And the type of girl that she is, in order to keep doing as she would. She wants to be involved in what I'm involved in, which is really awesome and super appreciated, because prior to our relationship, she didn't have a lot of experience with it. And she jumped in with 2 feet, taking classes and shooting and having her own gun, and really took to it, which is, I can't say 100% because it's what she really likes as much as she knows it's a big part of my life. So being the type of woman she is, she's jumped into it 2 feet. So it's worked out really well, actually.
My wife had no interest in audio engineering either, but she helped me study for my test.
Mark, I apologize. You may actually want to back up and repeat that last bit about, it not necessarily being what she likes, but this mixer that was causing me trouble last night started to do its thing again. I just smacked it. So I think you're back in the audio mix now. Yeah,
it's not necessarily the thing that, may not be that she just, likes it. May not be the thing that she would probably choose for herself, but she certainly is jumped into it with 2 feet just because it's something that I'm into, which is awesome.
Now, speaking of jumping into it with 2 feet, I mean, you guys, you do. I know this much about you. You do more than just go once a month to the range and shoot. You guys have done some extensive training, and you've gotten involved in the learning part of that thing. Mark, tell us a little bit about some of the, just for enjoyment and for learning, some of the training type things that you've done. Of course.
Last year was the most I've trained in any single year. Last year, I think I clocked in at just under 130 hours last summer in actual training. And I'm not talking me going to the range with a box full of magazines and spending a day there by myself. This is actually being instructed with a teacher.
And the training coach, someone there with you teaching, that's a, explain the value of that. I mean, I know what teaching and coaching does, but that basically puts you in a learning mode, and there's somebody to watch you and keep pressing you with more information and making.
Yeah, they keep pressing you with more information. Another really good way to learn is by just listening to others as they learn. They may ask a question that I hadn't thought about. They may encounter a failure or a stoppage that I'm not used to. Mm-hmm. They may, there's lots of different instructors have different methods and ways about doing, the same thing and coming up with the same result, but different ways to get there.
Right.
And that's one thing that I really enjoy about training is that you can take it all in. And I think we've talked about this before. You take it all in, and you may not use it all. It may not be a great fit for me, but you take it all in, and you stow it in your pocket, and it's there when you need it, if you need it. And that's the thing about it. And as far as I've got a guy that I do some work with here and there, and he's kind of new to the training side of it, and I asked him if he was taking a certain class that was coming up, and he's like, well, which class is it? I was like, well, I think it's a basic pistol. And he's like, well, I've already done basic pistol. I don't need it. I'm just like, well, I still take basic pistol every year. At the end of the day, you get confident, you skip steps, you miss fundamentals. And until you've mastered it, who are you to say that you don't need it anymore? So, but there's also the aspect of which I get, not a lot of people have a bunch of money that they can just keep throwing at training.
Right.
Especially taking the same course, multiple times. Like in this instance, this would have been the second time he's taken that course from the same instructor.
Right.
So I can kind of understand it, but at the end of the day, when you get comfortable, you skip the basics. And that's not just with shooting. It's with golf. It's with billiards. It's with, sales. I remember selling cars when I was really young in my early 20s. It's like the basics is what it's all about. You skip steps, you don't succeed.
Music business is all about practice. And I also, for a while, when I could afford it, was a pilot. And you lose skills if you don't pay attention.
Absolutely. It's perishable.
You want to talk about some, what's your favorite course that you have ever taken? The most fun thing?
I think the most fun thing that I've done was a simunition style course where somebody was shooting back at you.
Wow.
Yeah, and so most of our audience is probably familiar with simunitions, but think of it as airsoft or paintball, but it comes at you a little bit faster because it has a small amount of charge behind it, generally just the primer, and you'll leave a welt. And is a friend of ours that conducted the thing, and this one was using very high velocity, essentially airsoft. So it wasn't a marker. This was really more of you're going to feel it if you get hit, and that's going to be your marker. And he jokingly said, today you're going to learn the difference between cover and concealment. And the difference being that cover will actually stop something from hitting you. Concealment just makes you harder to see. And I accidentally left my knee outside of the barricade, and everything else I was doing pretty good, but he saw my knee and he just laid into that thing with the simunitions. And pain's a pretty good teacher, but I think that was the most fun, and I'd like to do more of those kind of things where you're doing something against an adversary, if you will. Everything that I've read, everything I've listened from people who have actually been in violent encounters say that training and classes are all good and well, and there's a certain point to which a good instructor can take you. But until somebody with a brain is fighting back against you, it's all book learning, and that's, I think that, anybody that's done competitive, combative sports like jiu-jitsu or, taekwondo or anything else like that understands that there's so much you can get from the kata, going through the motions and, drawing your pistol and presenting your pistol on target and getting good shots. And even if somebody's yelling in your ear and trying to induce stress artificially, there's only so far you can get until somebody with a comparable amount of skill or better opposes you and fights against you. And so that's something I would like to do. I just think it would be, I know for a fact it would be humbling. I just hope that, going into it, that maybe I last a little bit longer than 5 seconds. That I'm aiming high with that one. Anyway, that's what I would like to do next. And I think, that kind of training would be phenomenal.
Well, Mark, you want to answer what's the most fun thing question? Have you had a thought?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the vehicular dominance. And so I think it was called vehicular dominance and survival. So the class revolved around running your gun from concealment in, out, and around vehicles.
Okay.
And it was pretty awesome. And I think we've mentioned it a few episodes back, but ended up with me and Corey at one point in the back seat of a Cherokee with foam knives and the instructor saying go, and it was how are you going to get out of it, and it was pretty awesome, because you want to be, it's very eye-opening because controlling a knife is very different than controlling a gun. The dangerous part of the gun is at the tip. The knife, you can't grab the knife, you can't touch the knife, you touch the person, and he still has mobility with that knife, right? So it's very eye-opening. But yeah, it was an 90 degree August day in the back of a dusty old piece of crap Jeep Cherokee, me and Corey covered in sweat wrestling for about a half an hour.
Wow.
And by the time we were done, we were soaking wet and a little beat up and swollen and sore neck and a broken Jeep. We literally split the back bench seat in half. We broke it.
There are pictures on the internet of this. I've seen them. It looks like that seat ran into a telephone pole and wrapped around it. It's in a V shape, and they just destroyed the thing. It's awesome.
I learned I'm 6'6", 260 pounds, and I learned very quick that when fighting in a vehicle, the length of my legs have some serious benefits, because I can just basically prop them up and just push and just pin the person to the wall till they can't breathe, and controlling the hands and pushing. And I was able to get the knife most every single time.
Wow. See, I love this, that there's so many ways to come at anything, that is your most fun day, and that would be my worst nightmare. I was like, sweating and wrestling and kind of breaking a Jeep. It's like I'm more concerned with the Jeep actually that you broke it. All right, well, let's change. Let's go back to the earlier questions. Let's talk about, Mark, about you getting in business and in the holster business. And sure. What the heck is Kydex anyway?
So Kydex is a thermal forming sheet good plastic. So it's a thin plastic that when we heat up, it's flexible like paper. And then we use vacuum forming and foam pressing to manipulate the shape of this plastic to the shape of a gun. I got into the business when I was finishing up my time with that gun shop. And when I came to the idea, like, okay, am I going to go back into this professional sales career that I'd been working on for 10 years, or am I going to stay in this industry that has made me absolutely happy for the last 18 months? And one of the things I had been doing on the side when I was running the gun shop was making my own holsters. And
interesting. You just found the Kydex thing, and what were the advantages, and what drove you to go, I need to make a holster?
So I bought my first one from a existing holster manufacturer, and I wore the holster for about a year, and I absolutely loved it. That holster company had been very successful early on as one of the newer niche markets that they had. And their business had really grown from when I bought mine. I spoke to the owner in his garage till when I wanted my second one. The lead times were 16 weeks, and the price had over doubled.
Wow.
And the product didn't change. And I can understand it taking longer, but I didn't understand why it was worth more. And me just being a man of principle, I was like, well, I can make this. That's easy enough. And I ordered a piece of Kydex on Amazon. I ordered some rivets from some leather shop online, and got a chunk of leather from a local cobbler. And I made one with a heat gun and a toaster oven on the island in my kitchen.
That's great.
And I was wearing it in the gun shop, and people were like, "Hey, where'd you get that holster?" I was like, well, I made it. And they're like, wow, I'd love one of those. And before I knew it, I was making 10 or 15 a week for customers walking in and out of the gun shop. So it kind of had like the side gig, but we just turned it into, revenues for the gun shop as additional revenue stream that we had for the gun shop. And I was doing the holsters, and I was the only one doing them. I was the only one that, took the initiative to do it, and the know-how, and learn how to do it properly. And the funny story is, one of our guests, Mike Cicino, has my second ever holster that I've sold. And when I was in that shop, he bought it. I have the first one. I have the first one that ever completed. And I made it for Mike. And I was like, no, I can't let him have this. The quality just wasn't there. I was like, I can't do it. And the second one he got. And I haven't seen that second one for many, many years.
That would be interesting.
And he tells me, he's like, don't you worry. One of these days you'll see it. So it scares me to think of what sort of social media post or he's going to do or what exactly is going to happen with this holster, but it's going to hit the daylight again someday. And it's probably pretty scary looking, because I know my number one is crude stuff. So yeah, my time with the gun shop ended. And I said, you know what, to heck with it. I'm going to stay in the industry. I really like what I'm doing. I like the people. I like the industry. I want to do more in it. I dread putting on a suit and tie and jumping on airplanes all the time and bouncing all over the East Coast and doing all that kind of nonsense again. I wasn't looking forward to that at all. So I started Squared Away Customs.
And what year? When did you start that?
2013.
2013.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I started it. The first shop was in my laundry room right next to the washer and dryer. I grew out of that in about 6 months, and then in my house at the time had a basement living room. I stripped the living room, moved the shop over to that side, grew a little bit. I just came across some pictures of Squared Away Customs 1.0, and I had 3 mold guns on the wall that we used for making holsters.
Wow.
And right now we're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 400.
Wow.
And now, you know, I got a couple employees, and we got 1,500 square feet and lots of tools and tons of awesome customers that we care deeply about, and the rest is history.
I love the I can make it attitude. Well, I can do that. I mean, my wife, she loves HGTV, and you know, anything to do with home. She watched HGTV for years, and I swear that I was sitting there watching one day and watching somebody do something, and I found myself saying, you know, I could make that ottoman. And I knew it was time to step away. It was like, no, I'm ruined. Let me get away from the TV. But the idea of I can make that holster, I really, and make a business out of it, I like that.
You know, and part of me is just like, you know, like, I just don't understand why I would have to pay double because you're busy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's where it all stemmed from. I never would have made that first one if their price didn't go up. I would have waited the 16 weeks because I love the product. But I didn't understand why it was worth double.
They never should have. They didn't know what they were doing. They ticked you off. So, well, all right, David. Now, we left your story. Meanwhile, back at David, you were talking about how to you know, how you got into this, but you kind of left a little bit out in the middle there, where, you know, from Tennessee Gun Owners, which is what the original, we didn't mention the name of that, from the original gun thing that you did online, and it was for local for Tennessee.
Right.
How did Shooters Nation, and how did the podcast idea for, I mean, not just the podcast, but the whole concept of I want to do something else here, how did that, where did that come from?
I've got so much free time that I was looking for.
I know that's not true. This is the busiest person that I know.
I don't know. The podcast idea. The podcast idea really started last January, so January of 2017, and I wanted to do something, but I just wasn't sure what. And I knew that was, you know, considered new media, and I was kind of starting. You know, that was the beginning of that germination period, I guess. And somewhere during the past 8 or so months, one of my favorite gun-related podcasts on the internet changed their formula. And it was kind of like when Classic Coke went to New Coke, you know, back in the 80s, if you're old enough to remember that. And everybody rioted. You know, everybody said, you've changed the formula. I don't like it. And that's the way I felt about my favorite podcast, was they just changed everything. That, you know, some of the personalities left, new personalities came on. You know, they started introducing laugh tracks and things like that. And, you know, I thought, man, this is just not what I liked. And that started my dissatisfaction and really started me thinking more about, is now the time to do this? And then I was introduced to probably one of the largest social media centric firearms and training groups. And when I say groups, I'm talking social media groups, they're not trainers themselves, but groups. And I was pretty immediately turned off with a lot of what I would call the smog of smug that surrounded the whole thing. And yeah, it was so far as to that if you went onto their Facebook pages, there was a litany of things that thou shalt not do. And at the very top of it, there was the kind of like thou shalt always search because your question has probably been answered before. And running a forum for about 30,000 odd people in Tennessee and surrounding states and such, we really early on decided that we weren't going to have that attitude because there was value in somebody asking the same question again, because the audience that was participating in that answer had changed. Circumstances had changed, thinking, knowledge had evolved. And it was also good. It was a good checkpoint to, as you began to answer that question again, to assess, is what I hold to be true accurate, or has it changed? And if it has changed, then maybe I need to revise my answer. And I was really turned off by just that whole thou shalt search, thou shalt not ask a question that's been asked before, thou shalt only patronize the vendors that we hold dear, et cetera, et cetera. And I felt like there was probably a way to do a podcast for an audience that represented the average American citizen, average armed American citizen, that isn't a high-speed operator, that has never rappelled from a helicopter, that has never kicked in a door at 2 o'clock in the morning on a drug house and things like that. And make it safe to ask the questions that are relevant to people like that. That's not to say that the people who have done those things are not to be listened to, because they've gained knowledge from experience. But at the same time, I want to filter it through so that I'll be honest, a lot of the people that are in those high-speed careers are very type A personalities. And, they have to be. That is almost like, job requirement number one. If you're going to apply for that job, are you a type A person? Well, you're not, forget it, right? You need to be assertive. You need to be dominant. You need to be a winner. You need to be competitive, etc. The problem sometimes with people like that is they don't know how to translate what they know and what they've experienced into what you and I as average people can understand. And so I felt like I would like to take those people who have very valuable information gained through experience and be the conduit and the filter or the translator into the average person.
Right.
When we do these podcasts, a lot of times I'm asking questions that somebody listening to the show might think, this guy's new at guns. And I promise I'm really not. It's just that I'm trying to ask the questions that will pull out of that expert the things that, are pertinent to everyday life. And so that's really why I started the podcast, was I felt like, there's a bunch of gun-related podcasts out there, but I felt like there was room at the table for one that did it a little bit differently. And that was one of the things that really resonated with me about Mark, was that I saw some of the same things were rubbing him wrong, and we've just clicked from the start. So even if we just recorded this and never put another episode out there, I would insist that he and I still got together, typically on Thursday nights instead of Mondays, but we would get together and do these things just because I like talking about stuff that is relevant to my life, as an armed citizen with Mark. And plus we've got a lot of other things in common, and it's just been good to, become friends with Mark. But that's really it. I had a desire to put some good information out there and do it in a way that was a little bit lighthearted and sometimes irreverent, but also be, willing to be the dumb guy to ask the dumb questions, because I'm afraid a lot of times people stay quiet and they don't ask because they don't want to be seen as being not stupid, but just not educated. And I have no problem with that. I've got so many reasons not to have pride and hubris. I'm like, hey, if I bring one thing to the table other than the ability to botch an email telling everybody what time to be online on YouTube, it's the ability to be, I just don't have ego. I can't tolerate ego, even at work sometimes. And it's like, hey, let's just level the playing field and open the channel of communication and let good information get out there to folks.
Well, and one of the interesting things that happens is anytime somebody becomes an expert and they know everything about it and they've been doing it for so many years, you totally forget what it was like to begin and how do you, it's like the very first questions. When I started, one of the things I've done is I moved into teaching audio, and I had no idea what I actually knew that they didn't know until they started asking me questions. And anytime they asked a question, I knew the answer. But and that's one of the things that I find with any technical field, and guns are technical, and boy, you can drop off into acronyms and numbers, model numbers, and tactics and stuff. Just lose people. And I think it's a valuable thing to be able to welcome people and educate people in an atmosphere that doesn't make you feel like, well, you should know that, because we haven't, for those who haven't been doing it for 20 years, for me, even you guys are intimidating. When you start talking guns, it's like, wow. But I think that's a really valuable thing, and I
don't feel like that's a secret recipe either. I don't feel threatened at all saying, hey, if you are a host of a much larger podcast or something like that, here's the secret to what I'm doing, because there it is. It's very, I would type it out in black and white and mail it to you, because it's more important to me that we have more armed citizens that are capable of protecting themselves. Life is precious. I have experience with why life is so precious. And, if I can set aside any personal motives or gain or anything else by exposing this amazing secret recipe, which it's not very secret, don't be a douche when people ask questions that seem basic and new. Meet them where they're at and then pull them forward. It's so much easier to pull a person forward than it is to push them, right? And so it's more important to me to get people armed and capable of taking care of themselves, because the world is not getting any safer day by day. And I want every single person listening to this podcast to make it home at the end of the day to their family, or to their dog, or to their cat, or to their empty house, or whatever it is that they enjoy. I want them to get home because of the fact that they learn something on this show. And if we do that, great. And if somebody else takes that and corners the market on that and does it better than we do, fantastic. Like I said, I'm still going to be here Thursday nights talking Mark's ear off, so you're not gonna steal my audience or anything like that. By all means, please steal them, but get good information to them and make people safer. That's really it.
And there was, and I just to, I noticed the theme too. There was also a little bit of this. I can build that ottoman too when your other podcast went off the
yeah. Yeah. No one told me how hard that ottoman was going to be to build, but what is Han Solo in Star Wars? I'm going to geek out on you. His thing was never tell me the odds. If you don't tell me the odds, I will try to do anything once.
There is a superpower in ignorance and confidence. I really appreciate.
I should have a really big cape then.
All right. Well, that's kind of where you guys have come from.
Yeah.
How? Let's get into. Let's see.
Well, let me ask you this before we move into the next thing. I'm kind of watching the timer, and I want to be conscientious of everybody. We can do a short break if you want, or we can just keep plowing through it. I'm good. I've got my coffee in a very sexy Shooters Nation coffee mug, which
Yeti.
Yeah, it's not a Yeti. This is made by an American company who values American rights. So this is an Arctic.
So I'm not sure what our language rules are.
Yeah.
But this doesn't really work unless I say this one word, and it's the S word. So, well, there's this company out there that has these stickers that are the exact same colors and fonts as Yeti.
Oh wait, it's the S word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're slapping them, they
yeah,
slap them on their old coolers. I saw that today and I was like, this is hilarious.
Yeah, it's
Yeti conversion kit.
Yeah, it is. It is very much the Yeti conversion kit. I think that Yeti honestly has gotten kind of a bad rap on that potentially. I don't know. I'm still undecided. So I will be very honest and say that I have a Yeti coffee cup downstairs with the same logo engraved on it. I didn't bring it on here because I didn't want the live chat people just to tear me apart.
You didn't want to start a riot.
You didn't need the live chat. You have me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we're talking about taking a break.
And we can. I mean, do you guys need a short break to refill drinks or take care of basic human necessities, or do we want to just power through it?
You guys want? I can sit for weeks.
Okay. Mark, how about you? Okay. Well, when we did the podcast, those of you that are listening, this is where I'm going to drop a intermission. We might make fun of you for requiring intermissions. No guarantees. So I've been known to do that. But anyway, we'll just intermit right here. Is that a word? Intermit? I don't know. Sounds like it should be.
Intermittently.
Yeah. We will intermit here and rejoin you. And now we're back.
3, 2, 1. Oh, wait. Here we are.
Here we are. The magic of technology. Yeah.
Well, let's see. There's so many questions and so little time. I'm trying
to. We got one in the chat there from Alex Hitchcock.
It was like, all right. So whenever you get a break, Mark, I know you carry a G17 appendix carry IWB. How do you do that comfortably sitting down, or is it possible, or just something you have to deal with? So that's an excellent question.
It's a great question, and it's a really popular one, Alex. And what I always tell people when they're thinking about getting into appendix carry, and they always ask the same question: is that comfortable? And my answer is no. It's not. It's not comfortable. It's uncomfortable. Some are more comfortable than others. A lot of it depends on the size of gun, whether you have a light on the gun, whether you don't have a light on the gun, the location that you're carrying it. There's center line, and if you carry it just a little bit to the right, kind of where the crease of your leg is when you would sit, that is the sweet spot I found for myself. And I'll pull my, because you're watching, Alex, so you'll be able to see this. This is my carry holster here. I prefer this soft loop. This is our Kilo model. This soft loop.
That's in Louis Vuitton Kydex too, isn't it?
It's diamonds. Shine bright like a diamond. Yeah, so your belt goes through here. And what this does is it gives a little bit of flexibility. So when you sit and your leg comes up, your leg would be coming up here. It allows the gun to tip slightly. Versus if it's like a rigid belt clips like this that fits your belt very securely, there's no flexibility and adjustment. So when your leg comes up, that's not going to move over for you naturally. So I prefer the soft loops, for the flexibility and because it is a closed loop system.
Yeah.
There's no way a soft loop is going to just slip off of your belt. It is a closed, locked on soft loop.
Yeah.
They are what's called pull the dot soft loop, which is directional. So the only way to undo it is from the top down. If I lift it from the bottom up, it will not come undone. This is my standard basic. This holster is a little bit unique because my gun has an optic on it. Yeah. So quick answer to your question. It's not comfortable. It's just the juice is worth the squeeze for me. It's easier to conceal. It's easier to know that you're printing or not printing because your gun is in front of you. You don't need to constantly be pulling your shirt down in the back, looking like you have a gun. All you need to do is look at your shoelace, right? And that's fairly normal, and you can tell that you're not printing. Your gun's in front of you, so it's faster. Nobody's ever going to get it without you knowing it. there's a lot of benefits to it, but there's one big one that's, you know, a negative, and that's comfort. It's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Urban Survival Craft on online said the secret to appendix carry is finding the right combination of gun, holster, and sweet spot. Once that's done, it's the most comfortable method I've found, especially when sitting. So that's his comment.
Yeah, you know, if I can jump in on that for a moment, you know, just this past weekend I received my Squared Away Custom Zulu for my M&P compact with a light. And so you know, I have a problem at my house where I have chairs that have a lot of friction, and if I try to push them away from the table, they just don't let me do that. And so I find myself stuck there in front of a dinner plate until I finish it. As a consequence, Mark, I'm blaming it on the chair, man. It's completely blamed on the chair.
I was like, where is he going here? Like,
see, I just went there. Hey, man, if you want to know how a fat guy can justify just about anything, come talk to me. But you know, I never would have thought that appendix carry would be comfortable for me, and you know, it's simply it's still not. Except what I've done with this holster is I asked them to build it with a lot of forward cant, so that I'm showing on the video this thing. I'm using the soft loops as well, but it cants forward. And where I actually have found that thing is comfortable and it conceals well and everything, even for a bigger guy. And you know, if you're not watching the video, I'm not going to stand up anyway because I'm modest. But and I'm not wearing pants. But now our YouTube video watchers just plummeted. But no, you know, I'm built kind of like a fire hydrant, right? And this thing works really well for me at roughly the 2 o'clock position on my waist. So it's just ahead of my hip. And because it's canted forward, you know, it's very comfortable to sit down. It doesn't print. It's right there for me to grab. It's not maybe as you know, it's definitely not front and center like, you know, twigs like Mark, you know, carry with, you know, since they have 0% body fat, but not jealous at all. But anyway, you know, it's still right there in the front. And the thing that I've done some reading on is the fact that a gun, you know, if you carry it back on the back side of your hip, or even, you know, at the 3 o'clock, you know, just like right underneath your arm, if you were to get into a pushing contest or a grappling contest with somebody in an armed confrontation, you know, you've now, with your hands busy in front of you, you've left your gun exposed. And, you know, all they have to do is keep one or two of your hands, you know, one or both of your hands busy, you know, one or two, like you've got more than two. But anyway, you know, if they can, if you got more than two, you might, anyway. You know, but if they can keep your hands busy, then they can get to your gun potentially, or at least keep you away from it. And with a gun more in the front of you, I've found that I could, you know, probably fare better in a grappling contest with somebody and still get to my gun than I could if it were around the back, especially if I were on my back on the ground because they pushed me over or something like that. So anyway.
Now, is appendix carry new for you? Is that something you're doing different, or is that something you've been doing?
Yeah, it's way different for me and way new. I normally carry, you know, around the 4 to 5 o'clock position on the back side of my hip in a leather holster. And, you know, the leather holster is actually comfortable, yes. It has some downsides. You know, it can make you sweat a little bit more and stuff like that. This is, and I'm not saying this because the guy's here. I'm saying this because I really completely am sold on it now. This is more comfortable for me at the 2 o'clock position than my leather holster was at 4 or 5 o'clock, especially if I'm going somewhere where I know I'm going to be sitting for a while, like a movie or dinner or something like that.
Urban Survival Craft says, I used to get back pain from carrying strong side behind the hip. Going to appendix cured that. Also, printing is much less of an issue. The only person that ever noticed was a crook. So,
yeah, I want to know more about that. Yeah.
Also, Jordan Linshield, I hope I'm saying that right. Jordan
Inside.
Says, he asked, what do you find compelling about 9mm carbines? Now, that's an interesting segue here.
One thing I wanted to touch on regarding appendix carry real quick before we scoot off of that topic is how I got there. And a former law enforcement guy introduced me to it, and I said, "Yeah, that's not my thing. I'm gonna blow my junk off. It's not gonna be comfortable. I'm not gonna point it at my femoral artery all day. Like that's And this is what's going through my head as the ignorant appendix carry guy early in my gun-toting days." Mm-hmm. And he said, well, first of all, guns don't just go off, which we all know, and I know very well now, but this was many years ago. And he said, no, it's not comfortable, and he explained the benefits to me. And how I got there is I put it on and I sat down. I was like, yep. Took it off, put it on the desk. I was like, this isn't for me. And the next time I saw him, he's like, how's that appendix carry? Because he gave me one of his holsters to use. He's like, how's that appendix carry working for you? I was like, yeah, it worked awesome for like a total of 30 seconds. And I took it off, put it on the desk, and that's it. He's like, Mark, he's like, I want 3 days. He's like, you carry all day, every day. I know it, you know it. He's like, I want you to put it on and carry it for 3 days. He's like, it's going to suck. You're not going to like it, but I want you to commit to it. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay. And I did. And so I've not put a strong side holster on since.
Yeah. And the follow-up from Urban Survival Craft is that he used to be a bail bondsman. So that
that would do it. That would definitely expose you some crooks.
That brings up as many questions as it answers.
I knew it was either that or he is a politician. So
you'd have him on the show.
All right. So do you want to go back to the 9mm carbines question?
Sure.
From Jordan?
Absolutely.
Who wants to take that?
Well.
Oh, so it just happened to have.
Yeah.
I just happen to have one right here.
Oh, look at that back there over my shoulder, surreptitiously placed for your observations.
Hey, absolutely safe weapon.
Yeah.
So this is a 9mm pistol caliber carbine.
Oh, it's not an assault rifle then, because it's 9mm.
It's the same caliber as the 9mm pistol. There's
right. no assault rifle.
Not only is it the same caliber, but it takes the same magazine. Standard Glock mags.
Mark is totally ignoring my attempt to drag him into politics.
Yeah, no, I don't play those games. So yeah, this is a 6-inch barrel, suppressed 9mm AR-15. Little to no recoil.
Oh yeah, that's the 3-point lock thing you were talking about.
Yep, that comes off. It folds down and fits in my backpack or the center console of my truck.
That is not long. So, and you don't have to. Oh, you got a folding stock. Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Urban Survival for Craft says, why that instead of a 223?
Magazine interchangeable. Subsonic, suppressed, fits in a backpack. Low recoil, fun, and because I have 5 223s, right? So it weighs next to nothing. Mm-hmm. A friend owns the company. It's a great company. I'll give a shout out to Angstadt Arms. This is their UDP 9.
Cool.
Great company, small company, great customer service, and a fantastic product. They pick one thing and they specialize in it, and that's pistol caliber carbines.
Cool. All right. So questions. What? Let's see. What was the barrel size? What was the barrel length?
6-inch.
6-inch. Accuracy compared to a pistol with having a stock and having a little bit longer barrel and distance and that sort of thing.
So it's still a 9mm, still a 6-inch barrel, so it's not much longer than a 1911, right? But what it gives you is it gives you a shoulder.
Yep.
So it gives you stability. So it gives you multiple points of contact on the weapon versus just a pistol. Mm-hmm. So you're getting a little bit more velocity out of your 1-inch, 3-inch, 1-inch or 2-inch longer barrel. But more than anything, you're getting stability and the ease of aiming your weapon and putting hits accurately, right? Because the old saying goes, the reason to have a pistol is to fight your way to a rifle. right? Because you are more accurate with it. You will put your round, it's just a more accurate weapon system for anybody. And yeah, I mean, that's
the velocity difference because the powder has a longer barrel burn, but not that much, right? So
right, it's a little bit longer barrel. So, but what I'm, giving it in velocity, I probably lose when I'm running subsonic ammunition through a suppressor. But it's fun that I can shoot it without ears.
Yeah.
No hearing issues. So I don't need to worry about any damage to me or my loved ones if I was to use this near them. Not a bad home defense gun.
Yeah, that's I think Airman Battlecraft said it would be ideal for home defense.
Put some 147 grain,
Yep.
hydroshocks in it or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to go at it from a slightly more, I guess, I'm going to say slightly more scientific, perspective. But I'm thinking about my SIG MPX 9mm, and so one of my neighbors actually has an Axed at Arms 9, and I like it. And had I known about them sooner, I probably would have gone that route, just because I'm very familiar with the AR platform, having too many of them. But I have a short barrel AR in 223, like Urban Survival Craft was asking in the chat, and I love that gun. I mean, I really love it, and it's fun, and it's neat to shoot, and it draws a crowd and that kind of stuff at the range, and it's a conversation starter. But honestly, nowadays, if I was going to reach for something to take care of a home defense issue, it would be the MPX and 9mm, because I can get the same amount of ammo, 30-ish rounds, in a lighter weight package that I can shoot without any problem, that my wife can shoot without any problem, that my grown kids could shoot without any problem, and they don't have to deal with the muzzle blast and the over gassing and all the complexities that go with making a short barrel AR in 223 or 5.56 run properly. It's cheaper to shoot. So I'm going to practice with it more, and not only am I going to practice with it more, but I can also practice with it more with the same ammo that I would keep it loaded with for defensive purposes. A lot of 9mm shooters will go shoot 115 grain round nose Winchester or white box or something like that. I can buy law enforcement packaged 50 round boxes of Federal HST 147 grain for not too terribly much more money. And so, I may still take that 115 grain round nose stuff to the range for volume and quantity of shooting, but I'm still going to run at least a mag or two of the HST through it, just to make sure that the gun can handle it and that it's going to function properly, and that I know where it hits on the target with that, slightly more powerful round. The extra points of contact are very important for controlling and maneuverability and accuracy. Even though I've got the same number of points of contact with a short barrel 223, there's a lot more oomph behind that round, velocity wise. And, we did a conversation with Mike Cicino a little while ago about the fact that the 223 will fragment better and 5.56 rounds will fragment better. Certain rounds will, going through intermediate barriers like walls and things like that. However, Mike was also very quick to say, but really the most important thing is not missing your target, right? And so I can deliver rounds with a lot more accuracy with a 9mm carbine or pistol or whatever you want to call it than I can with a 5.56 or a 223. There's still that recoil to deal with a short barrel AR, and if it's in 9mm, it's almost like shooting a 22 rifle. It just barely moves. When I go to the range and shoot my MPX, my impact with a red dot sight and shooting very rapidly is about a 2-inch circle, and it just blows the center out of it. And,
which relate that now that falls into the question of comparing that to a shotgun.
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts there?
So we've got a shotgun. We've got a 12 gauge that we keep in the house for home defense, I guess. And it's funny. I'm sitting here thinking about how many things I classify as home defense. It's almost like if somebody broke in, we think, what am I going to use today? But the reality of it is none of us like shooting the 12 gauge, really. Not for extended periods of time. I guess if you were in a fight, you probably wouldn't notice it. But I think that one of the keys to proficiency is to use the thing a lot at the range, and a 12 gauge just beats you apart. And it doesn't matter how big you are. I'm a pretty big guy. I lift weights. I played football. I'm all these things that I guess should give me mass to put behind a 12 gauge. And you'd think, you're a big guy. Suck it up and shoot it more.
Still no fun.
It's still no fun. At the end of the day, I still have a black and blue bruise in my shoulder. And when I watch my wife shoot it, she'll shoot the thing, I don't know, 8 rounds or so, and then she's like, okay, I'm done. Here it is, and it's just not fun.
Gotcha. Well, Alex Hitchcock has a question. Any thoughts on sticky holsters? Excuse me. Any thoughts on sticky holsters? I have one for both. Just for convenience, moving it from car, house, nightstand, backpack, and carrying. Planning on ordering an Alpha. I think it's called soon. Thoughts on sticky holsters?
Sticky holster is it's good that it's protecting the trigger. Short of that, I am not a huge fan of the product. If you are ever in an instance where you need to go to a gun, or that if you're carrying, you realize that is a possibility, right? And it's also very possible that you would hit the ground, you would fall. And if there's nothing retaining that weapon in the system and your gun comes out, you're in much bigger trouble than you were before. And to have a holster with a positive click that locks it in place so it's not falling out. You take a sticky holster and you turn it upside down, your gun's falling out. And I can shake this one. It's not going anywhere, right? Yeah. So a retention system, whether it's a static retention system or a hood or a snap, like some will do OWB, but it's important. You need to be able to retain the gun in the holster is extremely important in my opinion. The Alpha, Alex, is 80% of Squared Away custom sales in the last 4 years. It is a phenomenal holster. You won't be let down. Good retention, good versatility, adjustable retention. So if you like it looser or tighter, you can get it with the clip or with the loops. It's a great product.
I think that the sticky holster is probably, like Mark said, it at least gives you something to cover the trigger. It's better than leaving your gun at home. The people that I've seen that maybe have the strongest argument for using it, women that wear leggings or yoga pants, or men or women, either one that wear scrubs or something like that, where they can't have a belt. That seems to make sense. But even then, I think there are better solutions than the sticky holster for the exact reasons that Mark mentioned. Like I said, it's better than leaving it at home, but I think I would probably look around at some other options if I could, just for the sake of retention. And if it was something that I wanted just to, the convenience of moving it from car, house, nightstand, backpack, etc., I would probably look for something that had a paddle configuration. That way, it will, most of the paddle holsters still have some sort of a hook under them that once you slide it past your belt, it locks in, considerably better than the sticky holster does. Plus, they have good retention. So,
okay. All right. Let's see. Let's look at. I'm looking at the guns and gear questions. Well, I'll give you a choice. You guys want guns and gear questions? Do you want to get into politics now, or
guns and gear?
Fun stuff.
It's like Jeopardy. Yeah. I'll take guns and gear for 200.
Oh, there we go. All right. All right. So here's a question. What suggestions do you guys have for carry ammunition?
Carry ammo.
And how often do you practice with your carry ammo?
Yeah, for me, it seems like I've really kind of narrowed down to federal HST in whatever it is. If it's 45, 40, 9mm, that's just kind of what I go to. Particular grainage, I would say, depends on the gun and what the gun likes, and also what what's gonna what's gonna impact reasonably close to your point of aim with your gun and that ammo. So some guns, like I'll say that my Glock 19, it tends to eat all of them, and but I can tell that my point of impact adjusts if I'm using heavier, like 147 or 124 or plus P or plus P plus, etc. Whatever you choose, I would just say, kind of stick with that. Make sure your gun runs it reliably and know where it hits. I like for my point of impact to be near my point of aim, because I don't want to have to do the math in my head of, okay, this guy that has a knife to my daughter's throat, is he 10 feet away from me or 15 feet? Where's that going to hit? If would I aim for the top of it? Whatever, right? So I want it to be consistent in within 21 feet.
Mark, thoughts?
I am absolutely on board with HSTs and Spear Gold Dot. I exclusively am a 9mm person. I do not own a 40. I do not own a 45. I shoot, like as I said, exclusive. I out of all my handguns, and I can't even tell you what the count is, they're all 9mm, with the exception of a 22 that my daughter shoots, and I have a little pocket pistol for those very strange situations when keeping a gun on my body is not an option. And I have like a little Ruger LCP 380, because 6 rounds of 380 is better than no rounds of nothing.
What
right?
would it take to get you a nice American 1911 and 45, Mark?
Yeah, I would never. It would have to be a gift, because I would never spend money on a 1911 45.
Okay.
I would never do it.
Yeah.
I love 1911s. I think they have some like charisma to them.
Oh, absolutely.
History.
Yeah.
Hold it, and you're just like, yes.
Yeah. America, Eagles, flags.
But I'll tell you, my years in the gun shop and my years dinking around buying guns, selling guns, I bought $1,600 1911s. I bought $1,000 1911s, bought $400 1911s, and not a stinking one of them performs as good as a $300 used Glock.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that. And I've got enough 1911s to give Mark one. But if it
thanks, David.
Yeah, I didn't say
just make sure it's chambered at 9mm.
Right, yeah. I was getting ready to say I don't have any 9mm 1911s for you, but you caliber snob. But no, there's a lot. There's a lot to 1911 that I like. There are so many logical reasons not to ever own one or carry one in the year 2018, but for some reason I still got a soft spot for them. So whatever. I just went down a bunny trail. I can wax nostalgic about 1911s all freaking day long.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I totally love I call it charisma to them. You know what I mean? And I love taking them apart and cleaning them. Yeah. Like stripping it right down to no more parts can come off this gun, and putting it all back together. And great guns. I would just never trust my life with one personally, ever.
They look great on the video, though, right? So
I'm sorry.
They look great on the video. So when you're doing
absolutely
all your YouTube videos that you can do.
Well, I mean, they do really well in certain settings, and they do really well in competitive circles. There's a reason why the 2011 is a thing. A lot of times they're in other calibers other than 9mm. I mean, other than 45, they're 9mm or 38 Super or something like that, or 40 caliber Smith & Wesson. Downloaded to the point that they are just barely coming out of the barrel. I know that a lot of your SWAT entry teams, I say a lot, I don't have any data on that. Anecdotally, I think, quite a few SWAT entry teams and things still carry the 1911s, but that's because that's their holdout gun. They've got something else that's their primary weapon system that they're using. It's an AR or it's a HK MP5 or something like that. So that single action hair trigger, is good for a marksman in a very specific narrow lane. it's not something that I carry anymore for protection either. So,
well, I know you guys are 9mm everything. Just to make the point for other people, buying a gun is as much an emotional decision,
absolutely,
field decision, as it is anything else. And like you said, any kind of gun is better than no gun. But there are going to be people buying 1911s, and there are going to be people doing 45 and 40s, and some people just like as many different things as they can get their hands on. What's the value to you guys of picking a caliber and sticking with it as far as consistency? Or, is this, I guess it just kind of depends on if it's your personal self-defense weapon, or if it's, if you're enjoying yourself at the range, or, doing competitive shooting. It all kind of depends on those things. But,
yeah, I mean, so I'm a 9mm snob basically because with modern ballistics, the ammos perform almost as well as 40 or 45.
Yeah.
Right.
And the huge benefits that you achieve by sticking with a 9mm is that you can train more because ammo costs less.
Right.
And it's the most readily available ammo on the shelf. You can fit more rounds in your magazines, which means you have more opportunities to miss the bad guys because you're going to miss. The recoil is less, so your follow-up shots are going to be more accurate. And I think those are all winners for me. And for instance, like with this pistol caliber carbine for a defensive weapon, that thing runs dry. I go to my backup mag that's on my hip, and it stuff's right in there.
Put it right in there. Yeah.
Right. And that's why law enforcement, that's why you're not, departments aren't allowed to just carry whatever gun you want anymore, because they need interchangeability so that shooter A and shooter B are running the same gun, the same magazine. So, you have that flexibility there.
Yeah.
So 9mm, it's just a lot easier for me to just know. I'd like look over there. It's like, okay, I have 6 cases. I don't have to be like, I have 2 of this caliber, 1 of this caliber, 1 of this caliber. I just know I have that much ammo for 9. And I'm, until very recently, only had 9, 5.56, and 308.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. But now, when I got into suppressors, I flipped over to the dark side and brought 1 300 blackout into the mix.
Nothing wrong with 300 blackout.
Just because shooting 300 blackout subsonic suppressed is like, it's more fun than a giggle switch.
That's right. Yeah,
it's, like,
it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I'll go a step further. I'm going to say that not only is it good to standardize on a caliber, but I'd say it's also probably more important to me, and it's the message that I've started preaching to people, is to standardize on a platform. And I used to go to the range, and I would take a bag, or a range bag that would carry 4, 5, 6 handguns. And at the time I was carrying my Glock 19, or one of my Glock 19s, pretty much exclusively. And I would take a bunch of other things just because it was fun to shoot them. And it still is fun to shoot them. I'm not saying it's not. And I think, though, that lately what I've really flipped over to is when Smith & Wesson came out with the M2.0 series, I fell back in love with the M&P. And I was, this doesn't make like I'm not special because of this, but I was a very early adopter of the M&P back in like 2007 when it first came out. But I got away from it because the 9mm flat sucked. The 40s and the 45s were good. The 9s were just terrible. And so with the 2.0, they fixed a lot of the problems and they made it better. And in my opinion, they've kind of leapfrogged Glock. And I'm expecting Glock will come back around sooner or later and leapfrog them again, because that's just the way that they do. But the 2.0 compact is identical in size to the Glock 19 for the most part. And so that's all I carry to the range anymore. And, when I go to the range, I just, just this past weekend, and the guys that know me there were like, "What'd you bring?" Brought my, M&P 2.0 compact 9. Well, that's what you had last time. Yeah, it is. And what I've noticed is that I can quantifiably show that my accuracy and my proficiency have gotten better because I'm taking the same gun time after time, and that's where all of my my trigger time is. So the nice thing I'll say also, I like 9 for the fact that it's affordable, but I think 40 Smith & Wesson is on the cusp of, if not already to the point that it's almost as affordable as 9mm, and will be, because it was the law enforcement ammo of choice for so many years, and yet so many agencies now are flipping over to 9 that there is currently at least a surplus of 40 caliber ammo that you can get. And it's, you give up maybe a round or two in a similar size mag to go from 9 to 40. This mag that I'm holding in my hands holds 15 rounds of 9. If it were a 40 caliber, it would hold 13 rounds. So that's 2 rounds deficient. But it's not a significant difference. The trade-off there is, of course, it's a snappier round. It's not as easy, for some people to shoot, and it's a little bit harder on the gun, and definitely a little bit harder on the shooter. It fatigues you faster, but it's still not. It's not like not like you're going out and shooting a 44 Magnum and you're just going to be tired of it after 16 rounds or so. I think the 40 still has some life in it. I think there's still some compelling reasons to get it, and if you wanted something that you could count on, if it's important to you in any way to be interchangeable with law enforcement in your area, there's a lot of dumb reasons to say that that's important. But anyway, let's just say that that's important to you. A lot of them are still shooting the Glock 22s, which are 40 caliber, and so that's a good platform to have.
And if I'm right, the Canadian Mounties say you can take down a polar bear with it if you need to.
I don't know. I mean, I know that Jordan spent a lot of time in Canada, so he could probably tell us what they do, or what they do, what they buy at Tim Hortons whenever they go get their donuts and stuff. But I think that that had been the rumor for the longest time about 10mm was is a good bear cartridge, and some of my friends that live where there are bears are like, no, that would just piss off a bear.
It's that cartoon of the stick figures.
Yeah.
Shooting a 380, and the 380 is like dot 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 dot. Hits the bad guy, and the bad guy's still standing.
Oh,
right?
okay, yeah.
And then there's 9mm, and the 9mm lobs in, and the stick figure's got a hole through it. And then there's 40 caliber, and the stick figure has a little like a explosion out its back.
Yeah.
And then there's 10mm, and it's just a fireball. There's just no stick.
Like a nuclear fireball or something. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. I don't know. I hear a lot of people say that the 40 caliber is dead, and that's because the FBI has switched back to 9mm, etc. I don't think it's dead. I think that cartridge is going to stick around for a very long while if it ever goes away. And yeah.
On an ammo standpoint,
yeah,
it is on a extreme decline.
Yeah, they stopped making it for the most
ammo
part.
Sales.
Yeah.
It's on an extreme decline.
Yeah, they've got probably more stock built up in warehouses for that stuff than they can move right now.
And which count? And 40? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay. It's a good cartridge. I don't have anything bad against it. I don't prefer it anymore. I used to carry 40 exclusively because I was stupid and thought that you shouldn't carry anything that didn't start with a 4. But I was one of those guys for a while. I'm not gonna lie. But after I got over that, I got Jordan. After I got back into 9mm, that's kind of where I've stayed. Especially like Mark said, the technical advances in modern ammo make it academic. Jordan said if a moose sees you carrying a 40 Smith & Wesson, he'll run away out of fear of being associated with you. That's true.
Not fear of the ammo.
That's science.
By association.
Yeah. That's experience and science from having spent time in Canada with moose. So,
Canada, eh?
Yeah. Moose.
Yeah.
Multiple mooses. Well, why you mentioned your M&P,
yeah.
How critical is the Apex tactical trigger on your M&P?
Oh boy. Yeah. That gets brought up a lot. With the first gen M&Ps, if you were lucky and you got a ringer, you wouldn't need an aftermarket trigger. My first gen M&P 40 has a phenomenal trigger, and this is what kills me. People say, "Well, I'm looking for the Glock like trigger." My answer is go buy a Glock, right? Because that's the way you're really going to get that. But my M&P 40 has got that positive click reset that you can feel and hear and everything else. It is a freak of nature. I will never sell it just because of that. My M&P 45 had a similar really good trigger. My 9, every single M&P 9 that we've bought prior to the 2.0 series felt like you had substituted a raw hot dog for the trigger. I mean, it was all the same sensation of that. It was just
Vienna sausage,
right? Like a Vienna. You'd pull it and you'd be like, your face would just pucker up like, oh, yeah, that is a terrible trigger.
One of my favorite M&P trigger lines is they have more creep than a TLC concert.
Yes. Yeah, they got more creep than a white van parked near a playground. So they. The M 2.0 though changed that, and I don't think the Apex trigger is all that essential. I did just put the Apex trigger in my compact, only because I'm somewhat arrogant, and I felt like, okay, I'm to the point now where I have repeatable accuracy. I want to see if the trigger gives me anything extra, and I would be perfectly happy to take that out of there tomorrow and not use the Apex. I don't feel like it's made me any better of a shooter. I don't feel like it's made the gun any better of a gun. Because of the fact that I'm not swapping it up and taking a bunch of different guns to the range, I get bored and I get gun ADD and I want to play with things, and I put a trigger in it. And so I would say it's not essential. It's a nice upgrade. It's not going to make you a better shooter unless you're in that top 1% of shooters, and then maybe it will. And I don't even know that I can quantifiably say that. So I've probably just sunk any endorsement that we'll ever get from Apex Factory.
But there's a certain value to fun.
Well, it's a cool looking trigger, and I'll say this: it didn't do anything for the accuracy of the gun. It didn't do anything for the feel of the gun. It maybe shortened the reset a little bit, and I kind of quit being one of those guys that rides the reset of the trigger, because I don't want that to become so ingrained in me that if I have to pick up somebody else's gun to use it in a life or death situation, that I wouldn't let the trigger fully reset. I tend to be one of those guys that, I think it's Rob Latham, the national competitive, very well renowned, the great one, as he's called, that says, I don't ride triggers for reset. I slap that trigger. And, a lot of trainers teach you not to do that. I differ in my opinion. I don't ride reset. I let it go all the way out and I bring it back in. And I've just tried to make sure that I can do that repeatedly without disturbing my sight picture. Pardon me. So the thing that trigger does do that is very much worth the money, in my opinion, is that it gets rid of the goofy hinged safety that the M&Ps have, and it puts a Glock-like trigger safety in the middle of it, which I prefer. And it is a much wider trigger shoe, so that when I put my finger on it, my finger doesn't feel like, I don't feel like my finger's hanging 3/4 of the way off the edge of the trigger. There's enough width to that trigger that it just feels good under my finger. So from those perspectives, I would absolutely spend the money on it. For any other reason, probably not.
Okay.
I have a different point of view.
Yeah.
I, up until about 2 years ago, was also a very big M&P fan. And I had every single M&P and 9mm made. And I kept them. And I carried them. And I would not have owned any of them if it wasn't for the Apex trigger. I'm not speaking to the 2.0s, the 2.0, the newer versions, the old guns. The very first thing I ordered my gun, I ordered the trigger with it, because I don't like I would put it. I wouldn't even shoot them.
Sure, yeah.
I wouldn't even dry fire them. I would just gut them and put the trigger in, just because I knew they were crap.
Yeah.
And I'm a trigger snob, right? I want it to be crisp. I want a tactile and audible reset on any one of my guns.
Yeah.
I want to feel it. I want to hear it. And if I don't have it, I hate the trigger and I won't shoot it. Period.
Yeah, the first M&P 2.0 I saw at the range, it was the peanut butter brown 5-inch 9mm 2.0 that had just come out, and the guy had it there. And of course, you know, if you show up at the range with a new gun, everybody's going to ask you to shoot it. And I didn't ask him, and he offered it, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not real big on the M&P 9s anymore. And he's like, oh, yeah, try it. Tell me what you think. And the first trigger pull and shot that pulled off of it, I thought, wow, okay, I may have to own one of these. And I think it was the next day I ordered one. You know, they have really knocked it out of the park with the trigger on in the 2.0s. It's still not Glock-like. You know, I don't want anybody to be disappointed and come back later and say, you jerk, you talked me into this because you described it so well. It's still not Glock-like, but it is far better than the first gen ever was.
Okay. Very cool. While we're on guns, Mark, what's the advantage of the fully customized Agency Arms Glock?
Well, it looks good on Instagram.
And Dave,
I'm sorry over here laughing. It's like I'm a supermodel for a girlfriend. That's what it's like.
They look good on Instagram. So I am not somebody that needs a fully customized agency to be a better shooter. I have not outshot a stock Glock yet, right? But it does a couple of things for me. It functions easier for me. This is my 17. Safety check, clear, no magazine. Go a little higher here. So we have a red dot sight on the top.
Yeah.
We have a comp on the barrel.
Got to tame the beast.
Upgraded trigger. An undercut trigger guard.
Okay.
Stippling package. And if you look closely, all of this milling on the slide has reduced the weight significantly. The internals are all polished to a mirror. Everything is very smooth. The trigger is a nice wall break, very tactile, very audible reset. Enhanced controls, a very slight magwell, which helps for.
Yeah, I like the magwell on that. That's really nice.
They're very minimal, so that they still work with a carry configuration. I mean, this is my appendix carry gun, the 17 with a comp. Often, I also have the twin.
This is what it's like to date two supermodels.
The 19. And the funny thing is, the 19 has the 2-port comp. The 17 has a single port comp. I'm not sure if you can see these.
Any particular reason for that?
Well, now I have 17 and a 19 that are virtually the same length.
Right.
But different grip length.
Yeah.
So concealment is a little bit easier with the 19. I don't really run into it because I'm a pretty big guy, so I'm able to conceal 17 pretty easily.
I've heard that that's about the same length as like the Glock 34 when it has a comp on it. Is that right? Or
Yep. Okay. So the 19 with the 2-port comp is the same length as the 34.
Okay, that's cool.
So what you're saying is you can tell a lot about a guy by the length of his grip length.
The length of his comp, yep.
And how many supermodel Glocks he hangs around with.
I don't Glock 19 much. I Glock 17 more. I have monster hands, and as you can see, like with my grip, my firing grip is right there. So 19 is smaller for me. I can achieve a great grip on a 17.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Mark is the Sasquatch, but there are no photos of the two of them together.
Versus, I run into this a little bit of a problem with a 19 is when I'm reinserting, I will often get pinched.
Yeah, see that
because my finger overlaps the bottom of the gun. Yeah. The magwell helps with that because like I've literally drawn blood before slamming a mag in on a reload drill and going back at it. But Yeah, there are many advantages. And another big part of it is we make holsters, custom holsters for people who have custom guns. And if all I'm using is a mold gun and a stock Glock 19, it's very hard for me to tell you that your agency arms with an extended mag release, an extended slide stop, an RMR, and suppressor height sights is going to fit this holster unless I'm able to stuff one in it.
Yeah.
So it gives me that flexibility too.
Yeah. While we're on that, how do you customize the holsters? How do you accomplish that?
Well, by knowing what the person has on their gun, we're able to adapt our molds.
So you use blue gun molds to do all of that, and
we don't use blue guns anymore. We use mostly just all custom stuff. Like, for instance, we just ordered, a few $1,000s worth of our CAD designed CNC cut aluminum molds.
Cool.
Which allows us to achieve a perfect fit every single time without tweaking, adjusting, and prepping.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, that's kind of awesome. I was wondering, people don't have to ship you their guns. You have that many.
There are rare ones out there. Like right now in the safe we have, because we're an 07 FFL as well. So, if you have a rare gun that there is no mold for, you're gonna have a hard time finding a holster anywhere. It's not that we don't want to buy the mold; it's just they don't make them. So, like right now, we have a STI Marauder 2011 in the safe because there's no mold for that gun. It's double stack 9mm 1911 with a unique sight system on it, and he shipped us the gun because he wants a great holster for his great gun. But because it's so rare, the mold companies aren't going to spend time to build a mold for something they're going to sell 17 units on.
Gotcha.
That's the custom part of Squared Away Customs.
Yeah.
Right.
Little plug there for you.
There you go.
Work that in.
I've been thinking about that. I was just curious about it. All right.
See, where are we at on time?
It's 23.
Yeah, I guess probably about another 10 minutes or so, and see what else we can get in there.
Sure. All right. Well, no, this is the next question I've got. Let's see. I don't see anything from anybody else. The next question I've got is about belts. So you've both said belts are an important part of carrying. So reiterate how important that is and why. And what does Walmart have to do with it anyway? That Walmart always comes up.
Yeah. Oh, Mark, you want me to take a swing at this first, and then you can tell me, add into it or correct me. But really, I think a good holster and a good gun are pretty much imperative. A good belt paired with your good holster and good gun is the only reason you're going to carry that thing. If you try it with a wimpy belt that doesn't hold up to the weight of the gun, it's not going to feel comfortable. It's going to feel floppy. It's not going to conceal well. You're going to be self-conscious of it. You're going to be, in some cases it's going to be painful, physically painful to carry that thing for a long period of time, and you're just going to stop carrying it. So I would say that it's the Trinity: good gun that that you're comfortable and competent with, good holster that meets your carry style, and good belt. They're equal in my opinion as far as how important they are.
Okay. Mark, you got something to...
Yeah. So I just stripped off my belt.
Well, this has got a little bit better.
Nobody's wearing pants.
Yeah. I didn't know this was gonna be that kind of podcast tonight, or I'd have put some Barry White music on or something.
So this is the Boxer Tactical Zenith, which is a bit of a tactical-ish looking as it has a Cobra buckle.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. It's 1 3/4. I really like the stability of carrying a gun with 1 3/4 belt. But I took this off just to kind of show this real quick. And this one small section of the belt is where you thread through the buckle.
Right.
And what I'm trying to show here is that this part is a single layer of nylon. Mm-hmm. This is what I would call is what you would get out of a cheap belt in this region here, which is flexibility. You can fold it in half. You can roll it around.
Yeah.
It's super flexible and somewhat limp, I guess.
It's almost, it's a little bit sturdier than a seat belt, but it's still not very sturdy.
So then where you see it just fold right there, this is where the belt actually becomes the belt. right? This side is extremely rigid. I can't fold this in half if I try. It won't fold in half. It barely twists. It has some flexibility, but it's not gonna.
Yeah, it's not.
You can't bend
taco on you or something.
Yep, it's not gonna taco. It's not gonna fold over. And this is why it's important, because a fully loaded Glock 17 with 17 rounds of 9mm is not light. But the weight of that on something like this, and your belt's just going to cave.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you go to draw, it's going to cave the opposite direction and pull it up, versus just stay put where it's supposed to be and remove the gun from the holster rather than the belt wrinkling.
Yeah, I mean,
and
that is the foundation of it. You know, if you think about the belt being, you know, the suspension on your car or truck, you may have a truck that's capable of towing a boat, right? And, you know, or carrying a heavy load. But if the suspension is not up to that task, it's going to be a miserable experience and an unsafe one. And the belt is really that is the foundation of your carry system. You know, you need to pair that up with a good holster. I like I said, they're kind of a trinity, but they're really, the belt is at the bottom of that pyramid, of that trinity, if you will. That is the thing that everything else builds off of. And you could have the best holster on the planet and the best gun on the planet, but if your belt is substandard and floppy and doesn't support the weight of it and makes you uncomfortable with it and makes you self-conscious of it, or worse yet, it can't hold it up, and next thing you know, your belt and your pants are down around your ankles with your gun, you know, you're going to eventually just say, you know, screw it, I'm leaving this thing at home, I'm never carrying again, and now we've completely defeated the purpose of you having a gun in the first place.
100%.
While we're talking about belts, Sandy said, Mark, do you have any suggestions for women regarding belts? Our belt loops are not even made to accommodate a belt that wide. Thoughts?
Right. So what I found with Kristen is that not only are the clothes hard, but she doesn't like wearing them anyway. It's been a constant battle. And
doesn't like wearing the holsters, or
doesn't like wearing a belt, specifically a belt.
All right.
And what I've found is that of all the belts, she liked the Boxer Tactical Apogee the best, which is what I ended up getting her. But it's thinner, and the overlapping doesn't have the big bulge in the belly area, because it's a ratcheting belt. So one slides within the other, so it still lays very flat on her front. And because literally, I mean, just the way women are shaped, when she stuck a Glock 34 in her waistband with a standard gun belt, I mean, it printed. It significantly did. I mean, I'm not going to say she's being a pain in the butt about it. It did.
Yeah.
But the Apogee has been the best one she's found yet. And she likes it.
I would
you still
describe
need
that,
an 1.5 loop.
I was gonna say, I would describe that Apogee as almost looking a lot like the, the old uniform belts that military wore, where it was just a canvas strap with a polished brass buckle on the front, and it would slide through, and there was a little pin or cylinder inside there that would capture it. And it looks a lot like that. The Apogee is far more technologically advanced than that, but it looks really thin and lower profile. I don't know. We've had that discussion here at the house about belts and guns and stuff, and the wife doesn't necessarily like that, and she's gone to the beltless carry with the can concealment thing, and that seems to work out well for her. But it's probably just because we haven't tried something like the Apogee belt yet.
Cool. Well, we made it through that entire discussion without mentioning Walmart this time.
Walmart.
Walmart. I don't know. Walmart is great for a first place to go test out your concealed carry skills when you get your permit. Do the Wally walk, as everybody likes to call it. But I wouldn't buy my concealed carry belt there for sure.
All right, this is a totally random question.
Okay.
And we may be out of time here shortly after this, but how much did you guys have to change your wardrobe, your buying clothes, when you started concealed carrying? Look at us. Did you have to buy custom T-shirts? Talk about that. Just
I've had to buy more T-shirts because the rear sight on my guns pokes holes in all my shirts. I think it was Ian that we were talking. Yeah, right. Yeah, Ian and I and you and I, Mark, were talking about that, and it's just funny how many T-shirts I have that have holes in them because of the sights. Yeah, the gun's not the reason I had to buy bigger shirts.
and we'll leave it there.
Yeah, it's that chair that doesn't shove back very easily. I've got to fix that chair.
Velcro feet.
Yeah, it's got something wrong with it.
Well, there's plenty of other questions here. How are we on time? Have we?
I think we could probably go another 10 minutes, and then we really need to probably wrap it at that, just for the sake of having a
Here's something I'd like to toss out there for people listening to the podcast, people listening to the show live right now. Get your questions up, and anything that you may want to see or know more about that's releasing, and so on and so forth, because I will be at the NRA annual meeting this week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so by the time you folks listen to this, Mark will be there. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that I put that out on all of our social media outlets. So I'll put it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. And if people have something that they want to know more about, Mark, that's awesome. I appreciate you doing that. We'll get that over to you.
Yeah, I can get pictures. I can toss them up on the Facebook page or all that kind of stuff. And you want to see pictures of unique stuff, new stuff coming out, whatever it is, have questions for manufacturers, I'm happy to play that role, because I'll be there. I'm leaving Wednesday morning early, and then I'll be back on Sunday, so I'll be down in Texas.
Can I ask a question, Mark? What are you looking forward to seeing at NRAM this year? Is there anything in particular, any product or any particular vendor that you're really excited about, visiting with?
I am really excited to see my friends in the industry.
Yeah.
Because I work in the industry and I deal with this stuff on a regular basis, I pretty much have hands-on on most new things.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a tricky one. I still have yet, oddly, to have my hands on a real SIG P365.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm interested in having a little trigger time with that guy. And what else is new that's coming out?
Man, I tell you, if you can get your hands on that Arsenal Strike B, their new striker-fired, wonder pistol that's supposed to be the Glock killer, like the CZP-10 was, such a disappointment. But if you can get your hands on the Strike B, I would love to know more about that thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because NRA is essentially SHOT Show in half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a big show. I mean, after you go to SHOT Show, it's not a big show, but it's still very big.
Mm-hmm.
So there's anything and everything you want industry related should be there.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Sounds like fun. Well, do we want to try another question, or do you want to?
How about one more?
All right.
We'll wrap it up after that.
Well, since we got you here, Mark, it is an obvious thing to ask things according to your strength, and just point out to everybody if anybody is joining us for the first time and hasn't heard the podcast, there's an awful lot of experts that come on that cover a lot of different topics, and it's not all about holsters, but Mark's here. And it would be the right thing to ask you, what's the key to choosing the right holster for an individual? What are your thoughts on that? Well, we got you.
It really depends on your type of gun, the location on your body that you want to carry. It depends on what type of wardrobe that you're going to be wearing. It depends on whether you are looking for concealment or range use. Do you need to be able to tuck in your shirt, or can you go untucked? Do you want to carry in the front or on the side? There are so many variables, and it's so many emails every single day, where we're answering these questions up until about 3 or 4 months ago when we built the quote unquote holster finder on the website. And it's kind of like walks you through an if and when type of thing, so that if you want to carry inside the waistband and you want it on the strong side and you need to be able to tuck, it gives you a recommendation and a link, and then you just click it and it brings you right to that holster. The holster finder has taken those questions that we've had to answer for the last 5 years and reduced them by about 80%.
And it's fun.
Yeah. It's done a really good job. People seem, the feedback on it is great. I get a report every week of how many people have gone through the process. And it's pretty awesome. It's been a very helpful tool for us and for our customers. But there's so many variables, it's really hard to just say this is what you need to do. In my opinion, the holster finder is probably one of the better tools that I've seen to find what's going to be a good fit for you.
And I was looking on your website. There's varieties of colors and styles too. You do whatever anybody wants as far as color. You can and prints and that sort of stuff. You do that sort of thing too. And I saw things for knives too. So you do for that.
Yep, we do. Anything custom work, we're happy to do. We do a lot of knife sheaths. We are a exclusive sheath maker for about three or four different handmade knife companies. That we do all their sheath work.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I actually really enjoy doing knife sheaths. It's just kind of a different, from the day to day of guns and guns and guns and guns and guns. It's kind of nice playing with knife sheaths every once in a while.
That's awesome.
And if I ask the question, about the whole ideas of carrying an extra mag, I know you guys have really good options for that, but probably get into a long discussion about that. But
we could probably do an episode on that one, probably. Yeah.
But you add that in there too. It's not just about the gun. It's basically a system of things that you can carry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We do quite a few mag carriers. We have a single mag, a dual mag, an inside the waistband mag. Then we even have like holsters with mag caddies attached to them for appendix carry. We do quite a few different mag carriers, and we have, for the most part, they're universal. So we have some that are universal that'll fit any magazine. That's a double stack 9 and 40 for the most part. So you buy one mag carrier that works with your Glock. It'll work with your Smith and your SIG, which comes in pretty handy because you don't need to go buying, was this carrier for this gun or is this one for that one? They just kind of, their adjustability to them allows them to function with multiple different mags.
I'll throw this in as bonus content. There is a very religious argument about, carrying an extra mag and not. And there are several very well-respected trainers out there that I have high regard to that preach that you don't need it because civilians, statistically have never or rarely ever had to change mags in the middle of a fight. And I agree that as far as round count expended, most fights probably end well within that 15 or so rounds that a gun has. The thing that I've noticed is that magazines tend to be less maintained, and by that I mean you don't typically take them apart and clean them, and people don't think about that. I've seen more magazines fail catastrophically than I've seen guns fail catastrophically. I carry the extra mag because I know that Murphy and his laws are a real thing, and that's just one less thing I have to worry about. If the mag in my gun goes, I'm gonna pop that mag out, throw another one in it.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, like for me, the initial response when I have a click instead of a bang is a firm tap on the bottom of my gun. I reach over the top and I rack.
Yep.
And then get back into it. And if I'm still going click at that point, first thing I'm doing is stripping the mag, throwing it on the floor.
Yep.
Back on the mag.
Drop that mag.
Because the majority of all malfunctions are magazine related.
Oh yeah, I see. Failures to feed, double feeds, and things like that because of the springs and these mags. Eventually, they're mechanical. They're mechanical beasts. The spring eventually loses its sprunginess or whatever the technical term is. The tension or whatever. And
the spring has sprung.
The spring has sprung, and a lot of things. Guns that fail to feed. You read on social media, have you tried it with a different mag? And well, if that's acceptable on social media for diagnosing a problem, it's probably acceptable in real life if you have a problem. So I carry the extra mag because it's not that big of a deal to put one more thing in my pocket or on my hip.
Another great tip for you shooters out there that are kind of new to this game: mark your mags.
Oh yeah,
have a count on I started at 1 and I have, they're all numbered all the way up through. And that way, you're getting a failure. You mark down, okay, magazine number 8.
Yep.
Just gave me a stovepipe. And then your next trip to the range, magazine number 8 gives you a stovepipe. Maybe that's one to take out of your carry rotation. It's a good one for your training rotation because it gives you I have a failure. What do I do now without knowing that it's coming, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Good tool for that, but not anything you want to trust.
Do you rotate the mags?
I do. Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Cool. Well, we've reached about our designated time here, and it's really fun. We could keep going on this for a long time.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah,
for sure.
We'll be butting up to about the 2-hour mark with this. So, I think it was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys.
I'd like to thank you for letting me hang in here with you guys because it was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was. Yeah, I don't generally get to sit on the other side of the interview table, so this was. Now I know what it feels like. I'll go easy on the next guest. You take your time and answer that question however you want. Well, no, I appreciate it. So I guess this is the part of the show where we do a bit of a closing comment. And first of all, I want to thank everybody in the live audience tonight for joining us and asking questions. Really appreciate that. That was a lot of fun, and it's good to know what's on your mind and what's important to you. I also want to thank all of you for listening in general and making us a part of your life each week. And that has been a very humbling thing for me to discover. A special shout out to Mr. Tribby on Instagram for checking in with us each week. It's fun. We've got some folks that engage with us on social media and tell us what, that they're listening and what they like, and they ask questions. And I hope that doesn't stop. I hope that becomes more popular and that we get more questions. It's more entertaining and engaging for me even to go do research for questions that have been asked than it is to try to come up with my own questions, so to speak. Dennis, thanks to you for emceeing tonight. Really appreciate your time, and as always, thanks to Mark for helping me keep this thing between the ditches, if you will. I would encourage everybody, please go check out Squared Away Customs after the show and get hooked up with a better holster and give Mark and Corey and the rest of the Squared Away Customs team some love and some orders. Want to plug also, if you want to support the show, you can visit patreon.com and look for Shooters Nation there, or you can just go to shootersnation.com/donate and you'll find us. Not required. We do appreciate the folks that have done that. You're definitely helping make this thing possible and helping us keep it online and available for people to consume. And lastly, to just reiterate something that Mark said, we really want to hear from you. You can go to shootersnation.com, look for the survey form there, or just go to shootersnation.com/idea and tell us what you want us to talk about. Tell us who you want us to interview and what subjects are important to you and what you want us to cover in the weeks ahead, and we'll do it. We really, really want to know that. I think if, it's more important to me that you send us your ideas than it is that you send us any money. That I just want to know what you guys want to hear about, and we will do our best to make that happen for you. With that,
another thing, if you know anybody that may be a good guest,
absolutely,
suggestions of somebody and another thing I just like to, we touched on it earlier, but like the last thing that I ever want this to be, and I think that you're the exact same mindset, is like this is never going to be the place where we're eating our own.
Yeah,
I think that the firearms community and the Second Amendment community has got enough stacked up against us. We are here to help you. Yeah, no matter what your question is. We understand that there are people of all ages and education levels and experience levels in the industry getting into this every single day. I'm far from a subject matter expert on all things guns, but I'll do my dang hardest to make sure we try and give you the best information we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah,
always happy to help.
We'll be the first to tell you we don't know, but we'll also be the first to go out and try to find somebody who does. And Yeah, there's no such thing as a dumb question. The only dumb thing is not asking it. And we may not answer it on the show, but if it's something that we can even answer you in private, in an email or on social media, glad to do it. I'm in this to try to make people safer. That's it. And
Yep.
It doesn't matter how I get that information to you. If it's going to help you and it's going to get you home at night to the people that you care about, then I'm going to do what I can to answer it. And
Dana James asked what's coming up with the next or future podcast, if you want to address that before you go.
Yeah. So we've got some ideas in the hopper. We've got some local folks in the Nashville area. One of them is a former law enforcement officer that has an insanely impressive resume. And the only reason that resume really matters to me is that I think it sets aside the bona fides that this gentleman knows what he's talking about. I think there's a lot of people on social media that talk about guns that have no practical experience, and that's not to say that they don't have good information, but I'm really going to pique my ears are going to perk up, and it's going to pique my attention when it's somebody that's been somewhere and done something, and they're speaking from a position of experience and authority. So we've got some folks like that. Got a show about civilian medical. The questions and the subject matter experts are starting to roll around in our heads about that one. Looking at maybe doing a session on NFA items, and so real quickly, that's National Firearms Act, like suppressors, short barrel rifles, the fact that those things are actually legal to own. So is full auto if you can afford it. But that would be an interesting conversation. The interesting part about that, and if you're listening and you're an attorney and you want to get in on that, please reach out to me. Unfortunately, a lot of attorneys in that world look at that and say, well, that information is worth money. And so if you want to know about that, my hourly rate is this, and here's how I can consult. I get that. But I really want to kind of open that door and lower the bar for admission so that you attorneys get more business to do trusts and things. So talk to me. I'd like to put together a show on that. I don't know, Mark, what else? I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. What else have you got?
We've got the CEO of Falcor Industries.
Yeah, forgot about that.
Which is a very high-end rifle company they actually just came out with a pistol caliber carbine. I think they're announcing it this week at NRA. So I will be meeting with John at NRA and having a conversation with him. John is excited to be on the show. We just got to give him a date and a time and tell him when we're going to go, and we'll get him on. I think that I'm going to be in contact with a lot of industry professionals this week that I only get to see once or twice a year, and I will be planting plenty of bugs in the ears of my fellow comrades, asking them to see if they and most of them will, without a doubt, be happy to be on the show and give us an hour and a half of their time or so. So I was thinking some trainers, maybe some large gun shop retailers. And then just some other industry professionals. I know guys in the holster game and the gun manufacturing game and the knife game and the light game. So there's lots of industry, subject matter experts that we can get in here that I'm pretty well connected with. That I think this week we'll have some pretty good names that I can jot down and have some potentials for. But no shortage of content. And then even when we do, we can have Guns and Gear Talk, which is always new in this industry, and always, it's still fun.
Yeah, and again, that let us know what you'd like to hear, because we know all these people. And I can tell you, the list of people I know in the industry is probably substantial, but I don't think about the things that are obvious to other people, and I just ask, even if it's something like, hey, do you know somebody that makes backpacks? As a matter of fact, I do, and it would be fairly easy to get folks like that on. I just need, I need somebody to nudge me and say, have you thought about this? Because chances are it's right there in front of my face and I haven't thought about it. So
we also have a all-female episode in the hopper.
Yeah, definitely want to get that going. Yeah, and I'd like for that to be a recurring episode theme, so that you guys out there that are listening, if your spouses or significant others, or you ladies that are listening, we want to get some content out there for you. And unfortunately, I think that's that's a market segment that has just been not only ignored, but in some cases mistreated. And so I want to see if we can take some of our same approach and get good information to you without the ego, and preferably from people that have experience in that realm, whether they're female trainers or if they're people that focus on training female shooters. It'd be good to do that.
Great.
All right. Well, Mark, safe to say that anybody who wants to connect with you after the show could head over to squaredawaycustoms.com and browse the catalog. And also, how can they get hold of you if they want to, one-on-one chat?
The best way is to shoot me an email at info@squaredawaycustoms.com. It's either myself or my wife fielding that for the most part. And I'm for sure happy to hear from you there. It's a great place to reach me.
Awesome. Yeah. And same for me, just head over to shootersnation.com. You can use the contact us form, or you can send an email to shootersnationradio@gmail.com. And, several of us look at that, but I try to read every single one of them. And so far I'm batting 1,000 on that. And I'd be glad to, incorporate your thoughts and desires into the show, or get back to you one-on-one as appropriate. And we've got several people I want to mention that have sent in information about, they would like to be on the show. And so far, every single person that has contacted me looks extremely interesting, and I want to try that. If I haven't gotten back to you yet, it's just because I don't have a heck of a lot of free time, but I will get back to you as quickly as I can. And rest assured, I have seen your emails. If you've sent it to me, I've seen it, and I am going to get back in touch with you. So, or I've already tried. Check your spam filter, because sometimes I know that Gmail dumps it in the wrong place. So anyway, I may have already tried. But with that, want to thank everybody once again. It's been a fun experience, and I think maybe we will do the YouTube thing more often, if not make that part Absolutely. Of the weekly, if you can stand looking at us. So if not, I'll get a green screen. I'll put it right in front of me. All right. Dennis, thank you again. Mark, thank you. Have a good time at
Always.
NRAM. Have safe travels. Look forward to hearing about all the fun, cool stuff. I'm going to be jealous, but we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely.
And, for the rest of you, I'm going to play you out with some music, but in the meantime, until we talk to each other again, be safe out there.
The preceding segment was a production of the Shooters Nation podcast. Visit us online at shootersnation.com.